Something is living in Pelican Cove, and it's not human! Is anyone safe when this warpery demon invades a teenage beach party? Avoid the shore, or prepare to become the victim of the green-eyed monster!
Here it is, number 1, numero uno, the big stinking cheese of our crap pile of episodes. So we begin with this.
Yellow hair. No good.
Which is probably the one part of this whole episode where things make sense. We've set up the antagonist and know what she can do and what she's after. Though I question why this guy is fishing at night on his own and only apparently a few feet offshore, given how the editing makes it look. And speaking of odd editing and animation, in the very next scene, Betty's eyes don't seem to be looking down at her book, and she's able to move with super speed apparently. As at first she's near the back with Jughead, but is in a flash next to Archie, who has only just walked in. Veronica then appears, and the pair of them begin treating Archie like children fighting over a doll, bitching at each other about being jealous as Jughead saves him. Jughead and Archie go to the beach, where the fisherman was attacked, where Archie laments about who he will pick between the two.
I'm here doing research on a really exciting, weird mystery, but all I can think about is who to ask for a date.
And can I say that a character complaining about who to date is just not endearing, it's annoying. Even when this was made, it was annoying, because no one cares about if you can't pick a date. Especially if you go by this show, Betty would be the obvious choice, since she didn't try turning you into a mindless, love-stricken slave, or ever treat you like you were her servant, or expect to be pampered all the time. The comics must have been way better to not have that be the obvious answer. Whilst on the beach, the sea creature sees Archie, and it's obvious that he's the one she wants. Of course, why she doesn't just grab him right now and take him away like she does near the end is an obvious question, and if you say it's due to Jughead being there, well, at the very end she does it in front of a huge party of people. And it's not like she's weak or anything, because I'll remind you, she kicked a ship to pieces. But the plot must go on, so the fishwoman transforms into a mix of Betty and Veronica, and enrolls at school under the name Dorsa Finn. And oh boy, where to start with this. How did she enroll at the school? How did she enroll at the school so easily? Would there not be paperwork, interviews, seeing if they had room for her in classes, and so many other little things that would obviously stop her? And I remind you, this does seem to be in between less or around a day. There's also how she knew what a school was, where it was, how she found out how to get there, and so many other questions left unanswered that makes this plot so full of holes that truly I think the writers must have been drunk, stoned, or just plain blind to not read over this and question how it would work. Also, Dorsa Finn, really? Why didn't you just try and be less subtle with it? It was something like Halle Bet. So as Archie goes off with Dorsa, Betty and Veronica act even more jealous than usual as they decide to try and dig up dirt on her. Because yeah, trying to ruin someone is making you both seem like really attractive potential dates. Including when for some reason the pair suddenly decide to shove Dorsa into what appears to be a broom cupboard and lock the door with her in there. Yeah, they've gone into Reggie level territory of assholes. The girls continue to investigate for some reason, looking at both a pet shop that specializes entirely in fish and a fishmonger as well for some reason. They also go to a hairdresser to find out if they've ever dyed anyone's hair green, despite the fact that 1, she's a transfer student and might not have had it done in Riverdale, or 2, she just did it herself at home. 2 perfectly reasonable moments of logic that this episode just skips over. Because as I keep saying, logic isn't important to these guys, especially if it gets in the way of the plot. So other than possibly seeing her eat a bug, something I question due to how both Dorsa and the girls were placed, the girls immediately assume she's a fish person. Though of course eating bugs and long tongues is more in common with frogs and toads, so it seems even basic things like that are too much for the writers. And then of course we get this.
But we're going to prove that this time we're right.
What's that?
Saltwater. If my suspicions are correct, Dorsa can only look human while she's on dry land.
What possible suspicions led you to that thought? Everything about what you've just said is a huge leap from part fish girl to shape-changing creature. Though, given the episode shows her drinking a potion to change it, it doesn't really help explain this issue either. She was just a shapeshifter, then yeah, I could understand how she would have this as her unique little weakness. But this is an unexplained transformation potion, followed on with an unexplained weakness to said potion. And I still don't understand why Dorsa is going to these lengths when at the beginning she leapt from the sea to grab a guy without caring whether or not she looked human. Of course the water does work, though only partially on her arm where it touches her. Though Archie doesn't see it because they've managed to knock him over. Though this whole thing I'll bring up later because while they show it one way here, later it does seem completely different. Later that night at the beach party, where Archie reveals that he has a six-pack, which may be the most unbelievable thing here, Dorsa finally drags him into the water, where for some reason she begins to entirely change, which could be either her giving up her disguise, though it seems unlikely given how hard she's maintained it, and continues to talk as if she is still human, which could only mean that being in the water is changing her back entirely, despite the bottle of water only changing the small part where she actually got hit. No one is brave enough to go after the monster, which once again makes me wonder why she didn't just grab him in the first place and felt like she had to do this whole seduction routine with Archie. Though of course a certain theme of we couldn't have had a plot without it does ring in my mind. Dorsa reveals that she's been kidnapping men for years and working them until they die, as Veronica and Betty come to save Archie, by essentially attempting to kill Dorsa.
Who told us that creatures like you can't stand to have your gills messed up?
Messed up how?
Ever seen what an oil slick can do to the wildlife? Well, here's some spray oil for you.
Our heroes, ladies and gentlemen. The girls get Archie out of the cave, as we're told it was later sealed up forever, though not saying whether Dorsa was in the cave, so either she'll eventually starve to death, or is free to attack more people. So, yeah, nobody really won here, did they? Thus ending the episode with possibly the shittiest pun this episode has.
She paid for it with a credit card.
Do I have to explain why this is where it is? Is there any doubt that this episode, beyond all the others, should be at the very top as the series' worst episode? Everything bad about this series is contained here. Huge leaps of logic, plot holes that are brought up but never explained, characters going wildly off base from their normal ideals, terrible, continuous fish puns, a plot that spends most of the episode waiting to get to a point that it could have already established with Archie on the beach, the motives of the villain which are at the same time both clear and vague, as we know why she wants Archie but not why she decides to seduce him. Something in the end really doesn't matter. Other plot threads which are pulled at in the beginning but are then quickly lost under layers of padding and poor writing which can barely sustain its own plot, let alone intertwining ones. There is just nothing redeemable about this episode from start to finish. It is a complete and utter mess. And that's why this ends up at number 1 on our list as the worst Archie's Weird Mysteries episode. Well, it's the end, Archie's Weird Mysteries. Found your worst episode. Now that means I get to see you in a little town called Hell. A surprise, I see. Should have expected that one. That's done. It's over. It's not possible. A series that bad?